Ladies and gentlemen, Corey Bosmer here with radio broadcast sports legend Paul Rogers. How you doing today, Paul?
I'm doing good, thanks. Good to
Thank
be
you.
here.
Appreciate that. How exactly long have you been involved with University of Louisville athletics and just the university in general?
Well, I was actually thinking about that today, anticipating that question, because I always have to go back and count. But this will be my 52nd season coming up that I've recovered them in some fashion.
Yeah.
And the last 32 of those doing the play-by-play.
Now, when you have to think about that, that means I've always been told, people I know in this line of work, kind of like us and stuff, when you have to think about how long you've been doing something, it hasn't been work, it's been fun. Would you agree to that?
Yeah, sure. I've enjoyed the play-by-play part of my job by far the most of anything I've done. I was a regular sportscaster for 46 years, and it included doing the games, which was my favorite part of it. And then in 2020, I retired from WHAS, or iHeart as it is now. It was WHAS Radio and TV when I first went to work
for
there.
sure.
And I retired from the daily part of the job, but fortunately the games was a separate contract, separate deal.
Okay.
So I was able to continue doing that. So now I'm semi-retired. I'm very busy in the fall and winter, going to football and basketball games, and in the spring and summer, I'm retired and play a lot of golf. So I've got the best of both worlds now. It took a while to get there, but it's been great.
Right. Now, how long exactly do you see yourself doing it?
Yeah.
I mean, if you continuously enjoy something, it's really hard, in my personal opinion, like it's really hard just to quit.
Well, that's the thing. Like I said, I enjoy it, and I especially enjoy it now that I don't have to do it along with other parts of the job.
Makes sense. Gotcha.
So it's very enjoyable to me. It gets a little tough at times. The travel, the 3 a.m. arrivals back home after road games, and working holidays. We left Christmas Day this year to go out to the Holiday Bowl. Thanksgiving's a lot of times you're working, although sometimes in nice places like Maui or the Bahamas or things like that. So there's parts that more so from a family standpoint than for me personally. I enjoy it, but my family is always kind of making amends. Well, you going to be here or not? That kind of thing. But for me personally, I enjoy it, and as long as I do enjoy it, and as long as it's okay with the university, I'll do it. It may be another 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. I'm really not sure.
That's good when you can't put a time frame on it. In your mind, like I want to ask you, like, what would you say is your favorite call from the sport of basketball, and what's your favorite call from the sport of football? I know that's going to be hard, but
people frequently ask me my favorite game.
It doesn't have to be
had a
specific.
call.
Just you get what I'm saying.
It would have to be. There've been great plays in many games.
Absolutely.
Years. But my favorite call, just because of the thrill, the excitement of it, would have to be the national championship game in 2013. Just the whole atmosphere of playing for a championship and that kind of arena, and that kind of crowd and that kind of build-up, and a team that was that good that you thought it was a realistic possibility that it could happen, and for it to indeed happen, that was just a special night. And then for football, there have been so many key games, but obviously the big ones like the Sugar Bowl, the Orange Bowl, those high-profile games. Probably the Sugar Bowl especially because Louisville was considered quite the underdog too.
That's when they played Florida, right?
In New Orleans, yeah.
Yeah.
And they got off to a blockbuster start and never let up, and that was a really fun game to do.
I remember watching that game as many years ago as it was, and correct me if I'm wrong, was it the first quarter where Teddy, you'd have thought he got his head knocked off his shoulders? I was like, I mean, how do you, that wasn't no love tap. That was James Harrison type tackle from the NFL.
And that just showed how tough Teddy was. That game, the first play of the game, Louisville intercepted a pass and ran back for a touchdown. So
it was a pick six.
Incredible start.
Yes.
And then on the first Louisville offensive series, the play you're talking about where Teddy literally got his helmet knocked off and it looked like he might have got his head knocked off.
Yeah.
And he didn't bat an eye. He just got right back up and went right back to work, and Louisville pretty much dominated that game from start to finish.
What they end up winning by? It was over 14, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was not the blowout in the end. I want to say 38-21, something like that.
But it really wasn't that close. It was
never-
further apart than the actual score.
Never a doubt, yeah.
Now, back to you mentioning Maui earlier. I want to talk about Pat Kelsey and the Cards. What's your thoughts on Pat Kelsey? I chatted with you a little bit at his press conference. What's your thoughts on Pat Kelsey, and what's your thoughts about Louisville getting back into a tournament such as Maui Invitational?
Uh, I don't know Pat yet. I've met
Gotcha.
him, but I haven't really had time to get to know him and spend time with him. He's been quite busy, as you know. But like everybody else, I'm observing what's going on, and the man has just brought so much energy and excitement
Yeah.
and nonstop work ethic. I mean, recruiting, speaking, getting around town. And he's really gotten people fired up, I think, about the potential of what is here, which we all knew because we've all lived it, most of us have, and just so desperately want to get back to that. And he does have a successful coaching background. No, not at the Power 5 level, but every Hall of Fame coach started somewhere. So
Exactly.
what he has done is all he can do. Now he's at a big time program with a lot of support, a lot of facilities, a lot of tradition, a lot of history, passionate fan base. I don't see any reason why he shouldn't be successful. And I mean, I don't know if he's going to win national championships, but I think this program is headed back to where it belongs.
You know, Louisville fans for as long as I can remember, there really hasn't been this type of energy and like feeling since Rick Pitino.
He has the kind
Not
of,
to say anything bad about the last two basketball coaches, and Chris Mack and Kenny Payne, but we know it doesn't. It's like night and day difference with their energies.
well, with what this university's fans have been through for the last several years,
Yes.
they needed a lively, dominant personality to come in here and grab people and shake them up and get them excited again. You needed an outgoing
Yeah.
guy like Pat Kelsey. He fits the bill perfectly for what Louisville needed at this time. So I think people are feeding off that. I think he's been impressed with the energy he's getting back from the fan base. So it's all good right now. We'll start the season and see how it goes. I don't know. It's just way too early to know what kind of team they're going to have. He's got what I think 5 players.
5 or
that he's
6,
brought
yeah.
in. The early season schedule, I don't know much about it other than they are going back to Atlanta, the Bahamas, the Battle for Atlantis, which is a
Okay.
great tournament. Love that tournament. Maui's a fantastically beautiful place, and I love that tournament.
I knew they were going to either one. I just couldn't remember.
But it's such a hard trip. We were there 2 years ago with Kenny. But the Atlantis tournament is so much fun. It's a 2-hour flight. You're not changing time zones. It's not like going to Hawaii.
Okay.
It's a beautiful facility. It's all self-contained. The hotel, the basketball, all the fans intermingled. You'll actually walk into a game, and the other team's players might be coming back through the hallways, returning
That's
from
nice.
their games.
That's cool.
It's sort of like a big summer camp.
Yeah.
But it's great competition. I don't remember exactly what the field is, but it'll be a tough field, and that'll be a good, not exactly starting point because they will have played a few games by then. But I'm excited for that tournament and to see how things go, and then roll into conference play and find out what we got.
Now, would you say this is make or break hire for Josh Hurd?
Oh gosh, there's so much to college athletics. Obviously, it's such a high-profile sport, especially
Definitely
here.
isn't this day and age.
I don't know that any one hire makes or breaks you. I mean, he obviously made an outstanding hire in Jeff Braun.
Huh.
From all indications, this is one that, if for some reason it doesn't work out, nobody's going to say "I told you so," because I think everybody looking at this says, "Well, this looks to be the right guy at the right time." You just never know how things are going to go, but I wouldn't go so far as to say it's going to make or break Josh Hurd. No, but I think the chances. It looks to me like he made the right hire. I'll put it that way.
No, definitely. I definitely feel that way too. Let's switch gears into football. As you brought up Brom, do you see Jeff? Like, I don't see him coaching anywhere. Let me say that anywhere else, because Jeff is like one of those few homegrown kids that really wanted to come and coach where he's from. I mean, he's what, third generation
Mm-hmm.
from U of L, maybe fourth. I mean, who knows? Do you see Jeff? Me personally, I don't see Jeff coaching at any other university. The only way I see him not coaching at Louisville is NFL. But in reality, I think Jeff truly loves U of L too much to leave.
Nobody can speak for another person, and I don't know
Absolutely.
even Jeff could sit here and promise you he won't ever leave.
Right.
But I don't think he will. I think this
Same.
is the perfect situation.
Same here.
He wants to be here. He's not stopping off here on his way to bigger things. I will be very surprised if he doesn't coach here at least 10 years. And it wouldn't shock me if he coached here for 20 years. Now, the thing that might make any coach leave sooner than that is the chaos that's in college sports right now with the portal
It's absurd.
and the NIL.
It's crazy.
It's way too much to keep track of, and to keep reins on, and to keep a handle on until they put some reins on it.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't drive away, I wouldn't be surprised if that doesn't drive away a few coaches. Just say, I've had it, I can't do this. But all things, for what we know and what we know about the Brom family, Jeff Brom is not here to make a name for himself to go somewhere else. This, in my opinion, is where he likes to be and wants to be and will be for a long time.
Made a name for himself to come here.
Yeah, in a sense, very much so.
Yeah. Now, about the previous coach before him, Satterfield, what would you say was like the strategic, like, be all, end all for him? In my opinion, and by all means, correct me if I'm wrong, please. I don't mind being told no, I've been married for years. Or being told I'm wrong, sorry. Would you say it's the South Carolina situation with the job? To me, it's not that he interviewed at another job. It's that he said he didn't, and then it came out that he did.
That seemed to be the beginning of the end.
Okay.
Personally, I really liked him a lot. He was a ton of fun to work with and be around. And he had that surprisingly good first year. And
That nobody talks about, and that's what makes it so sad. Nobody talks about it.
The second year was the COVID year, right?
Yeah.
And that just kind of threw them for a loop. It did everybody, but it just seemed to really knock them off track that they never really came back and recovered from it. And then the South Carolina misstep, I think people were unhappy with that. And then I think he just didn't catch on here. I'm not sure exactly why people didn't like him more than they did. But I sense he didn't have people never really embraced him in the way that you would like to see a football coach like a Jeff Brom or as Pat Kelsey is right now. And it was one of the most bizarre endings to a coaching stop I've ever encountered. I had no idea he was leaving.
I don't think literally anybody did,
Then
except
all of a
maybe
sudden,
less than a handful.
He's up and gone. Not only that, he's going to the team. You're getting ready to play in a bowl game.
That's awkward.
That whole situation was very, very strange. But it paved the way for Jeff Brom to come back home, so it worked out great.
What made you get into radio?
I always enjoyed speaking. I can remember as a kid in school, if I was given the option of a written report or an oral report,
Yeah.
I liked to get up and give the oral report. I just did. I enjoyed speaking. I also enjoyed sports a lot. I played sports, but I knew early on I wasn't going to be a good enough athlete to have a professional career. So I just kind of put the two things together. I said, man, I can talk about sports.
Yeah.
I'll be a radio broadcaster. And as simple and as naive as that sounds, that's exactly what it turned out being for me. I kind of had that as a goal from the time I was probably in junior high school. Went to college and worked at it. Some opportunities came along at just the right time. Doors opened at just the right time. I was hired at, as I said, WHAS TV and radio as it was back then, right out of college. Only job I ever had.
Now, since you said opportunity and look, like in your mind, in your eyes, what do you think a person in this line of work needs more of, or is it a combination of both? All three: skill, opportunity, and luck.
Absolutely, all three, and luck is a huge part of that. I worked for 3 years in my sophomore, junior, and senior year in
Mhm.
college at the campus radio station and got some very valuable experience. So that when I came out of college, I had kind of a head start. I had 3 years of broadcasting experience. But even then, when I got out of college, I didn't know whether there was going to be an opening. Well, I was interning that summer at what was then WAVE, Wave Radio and Television, just as a summer intern, and found out late in that summer that WHAS had decided to hire an additional person in their sports department. And I had gotten to know Kaywood Ledford a little bit in college. He was the UK broadcaster at the time. He knew I was an aspiring broadcaster. So when I found out they had an opening, I went and I talked to him and was hired right then and there. Just like I said, the door just magically opened at exactly the right time. And I was hired as a TV and radio sports reporter and also to do Louisville games that year. Turned out I didn't continue doing them because we lost the contract and some things changed around, but eventually we got it back and I got back doing the play-by-play again in the early 90s. But all that time, as I said, was a radio and TV sportscaster. Did 6 o'clock, 11 o'clock, weekends, you name it. I did it all over a period of time. But the one thing that I most wanted to do and kept wanting to do was the play-by-play.
So I'm gonna ask you a question, and while asking the question, I'm tell you how I've worked at things. Like one thing that I've focused on the most, Paul, is getting people to know me and getting people to trust in me, building relationships, working on that more than anything. How important would you say for any new person is just that thing right there, working on getting people to trust you and building relationships?
It's very important. It's kind of hard to do until you get in the position to do that. Though. You can't just walk in a coach's door and say, "Hi, I'm Paul. How you doing?" I just remember when I was hired at WHAS and found out I was going to be doing the Louisville games. T.W. Alley was the football coach then, and Denny Crum was the basketball coach then. and fortunately, since I was broadcasting the games, it was kind of natural that we were going to interact some.
Gotcha.
And just over that period of time, I think you build a trust and a relationship and a camaraderie to some degree. There's a difference in being a sports columnist, say, who is going to be critical at times, as opposed to our job. Not that you can't be critical, but you have to be careful. We're hired by the university, and you want to be accurate and you want to be straight with people, but you can't just get on there and blast a guy for being an idiot and then expect him to do a post-game interview with you. So it's
That's
a fine
true.
line to be honest and straightforward, but yet to understand that I want things to go well here. It's more fun for you. It's more fun for me. It's more fun for the fans when things are going well.
Now, speaking of critical in hard times, how difficult, I know the last 2 years of basketball prior to Pat Kelsey had to be hard. How do you think, how were you able to manage? Because you spent a lot of time with Kenny Payne, and you actually know how Kenny Payne is and stuff. I know Kenny Payne gets a bad rap and got a worse rap in the fans' eyes. How were you able to make it through all that? Because there's a lot of critical moments in there where you're like, is this going to continue one day to the next?
Right. I'll say this about it. It could have been way worse. And
Very much.
Here's why I say that. The games were tough. It was tough to broadcast those games and see these same awful things happening over and over and over again. And when we were going through it last year, Bob Alvaro and I talked and laughed about this quite a bit. We kind of could get through it because we said, well, it's just 1 year. It's going to get better next year. When now all that NCAA stuff is in the past, and in year 2 he'll be able to bring in the players he wants, and things will start rolling along. Well, we weren't very far into year 2, and we kind of both looked at each other and said, "Uh-oh, it's not getting better, and it's not going to be better." And it was difficult to do those games. There's no getting around it. But I will say this about Kenny: he could have made it way worse, but he couldn't have been more cooperative, more pleasant to deal with. We did pregame shows, postgame shows, weekly coaches shows, whatever we did. He was there. He was friendly to people when we did it at the restaurant. A lot of the shows we did just in his office. I would go into the show thinking, oh my gosh, what are we going to spend an hour talking about? And we'd just sit down like you and me right now. We just talk. He was great. Kenny was not real good at a press conference setting. That's unfortunately.
I don't want to say that, but I mean, yeah.
People mostly.
I mean, it is what it is.
And I cringed at some things that were said at press conferences. And he made some PR type mistakes, no doubt about it. But for me personally, working with Kenny Payne, he couldn't have been nicer. So that helped get through those 2 years immensely.
Would you say right hire, wrong time, or just?
No, I think we all knew there were questions when he was hired. The main question being he hadn't had any head coaching experience. But now this is me talking now. I countered that by saying, look, why hadn't he been a head coach yet? Well, because he was the highest paid assistant coach in the country at Kentucky for a number
So why would you quit that? Yeah.
So even though he didn't have head coaching experience, he was in a big time program at UK. He understood
The landscape.
workings.
Yeah.
Then he went to New York, of all places. You don't get bigger than that, and worked for the Knicks. And then he was known to recruit and work with primo talent. And you thought, okay, all that stuff comes together, and there might be a bit of a learning curve on the job in terms of actually the head coaching part of it. But the package is there. I think it can work. That was my thinking, and a lot of people's thinking. And I know there were people who said, no, this isn't going to work, and it turned out they were right. But I just think to me, it was a hire worth making. Initially, at least, he really did reunite the fan base. There was a lot of divisiveness there from the Crum faction, the Pitino faction, the Jurich faction, whatever all that stuff was. And Kenny kind of came in with a warm fuzzy, got all the players behind him. And I just remember right there at the start, it was such a good feeling. But it didn't continue, and the on-court product just was not good. And then people started getting divided again. Keep him, let him go, firing, finish the year, whatever it would be. And you got right back into that divisiveness that had been there before. But I can't argue with the hire. At the time, I liked it. And I'm sorry for him it didn't work. But it was clear by the end of year 2 it wasn't working, and the change had to be made.
Kenny got to be a person like Kenny in a situation like that. What you might not see it, you might not watch it, you might not hear it, but you know what people are saying about you. I don't know if I'd be able to be quiet like he was. After his last official game coached as the head coach of the University of Louisville. I don't know how do you do something like that?
He amazed me in that regard, that he had to know there was
At
a
some
lot of
point.
unrest in the fan base, but he
Right.
never acknowledged it. He just went about his business, and wasn't going to let that affect him. He didn't change his demeanor at all. He coached. I think he coached the players harder than people realize. I hear a lot of people talking about, he was too easy on them. No, he worked them hard. I went to a lot of practices, believe me, and it was not a picnic. He pushed, and he coaxed and cajoled and worked them hard, but somehow the message just wasn't getting through. I've said it a number of times, I think he can coach players and relate to players, but somehow he had a hard time coaching a team and getting the team unit together and managing the program, the bigger picture things. And that's probably why, I'm guessing, he went back with Coach Calipari to Arkansas, because he could go back to doing what he did and liked doing best. I think that's coach players.
Kenny, I guess, is kind of like the perfect example, and I can use it for myself too, like doing things like I was telling you, U of L is the first, university to give me opportunities, and I'll be forever grateful for that. And back to what you were saying about Kenny, an individual like Kenny, you don't know what a person is capable of at the end of the day until given a chance. We all deserve
That's right.
chances.
That's right. Somebody took a chance on me and hiring me right out of college. And I can tell you, looking back on it, that was a huge gamble they took. Because personally, I felt I was qualified. I can do this.
Yeah.
And I went and I did it. But
Yeah.
looking back on it, I think of things I did or didn't do or should have done. I go, wow, how did I get through this? They stuck with me. So that's part of a career. That's part of gaining experience and learning and hopefully getting better.
What's your thoughts on? You mentioned it earlier. Got a few more questions before we end this. What's your thoughts on the landscape of how the transfer portal is? It's obvious that the young men and women that play these sports deserve chances and stuff like that, etc. Even deserve to get paid. It's, without a doubt, they all do. But it's the wild, wild west out there. There's no stopping. There's no nothing. At some point, there has to be like a limit, or like, I'll use, the young person, Trenton Flowers, for example. I'm not bashing, but like, how is it possible to take that and then not even really play, and you're still paid?
You got me. They have to say, I hate it when people say, I don't know what the answer is, but they got to fix it. Well, I'm going to say, I don't know what the answer is, but it's got to be fixed. They've got to get some kind of control of this.
Yeah.
And some guardrails. I mean, I'll give you, when NIL came into being, here's what I pictured. Remember the commercial Jack Plummer did for
Drexler?
for Tom Drexler?
Drexler, yeah.
Fabulous.
It was
Great
great.
commercial, funny.
It was good.
Took his name, image, and likeness, and he got paid for that.
It was great.
That's fine. And that was, I think, in theory, what it was supposed to be. Oh, you're becoming a well-known football player. If somebody wants to use you to be a spokesman for their company, or if somebody wants you to come speak to their group, you can now do that, and you can get paid for that, earn a little money. Great. But as we all know, it blew up. And now it's pay for play. It's, we'll pay you this much to come play for us. And that's not what it was supposed to be. It's not what it should be. But, the rabbit's out of the hat now, whatever that saying is, and then they can't get it back in. And there has to, I don't know how coaches deal with it. I really don't.
It's unreal.
And Jeff Brum and Pat Kelsey both seem to be doing a great job of it. But how long can you continue doing that? Every day you're recruiting your new team, or recruiting your current players if you want to keep them. It's
almost like you
ongoing.
said.
You can transfer on a whim. You need to pay me this much, or I'm leaving, and that's not sustainable.
And I'll use Penny for an example too, like this. I've met Penny a couple times, at some spring stuff. They would allow players to speak to media and stuff after the spring practices. He's already wanting to come back potentially. I'm like, like 48, 72 hours all of a sudden. Would you say that's the perfect, or I wouldn't say necessarily the perfect example, but a good example of the grass isn't always greener?
Yeah, probably, probably so. And there's, there are
stuff we don't know.
Yeah, there's always things we don't know.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are often good reasons why a player should or wants to transfer. But unfortunately, it just takes on the appearance many times of, man, I thought I was going to come here and be the starter. Now I'm not. I'm going somewhere else. And rather than fight through and make yourself better and thrive in the competition and work into that position. So I'm old and I'm old school. And I don't really like the total freedom of movement. Yes, there should be some. You should be able to leave and go somewhere, especially when a coach leaves, then you should be free to go with him or whatever. But it's just way too much of a free-for-all right now.
Now, let me add one more thing on that. Would you say the NCAA hasn't put anything, I wouldn't necessarily say like a chokehold or stuff like that, you get what I'm saying, but like they're just letting it be what it is for the last several years, which is a free-for-all, wild, wild west, like we just said, because of all the wrongs they've done when it comes to the coaches and players?
No, I think the biggest problem there is they don't have a legal ground to stand on. Every time they try to make a decision, it goes to court and it get overturned. So I think they're just kind of sitting there helpless, watching all this stuff go on, and their hands are tied, and they don't seem to know what to do. Nobody seems to know legally what you can do. So somehow, eventually, I guess it's going to maybe go to the courts to figure this thing out. I'm not an attorney, don't want to be, don't understand the law in many, , cases.
Yeah.
But that may be what it takes to get this thing straightened out.
would you say it's more or less basically, so what you're saying is it's pretty much just going to go to the courts? It's going to have to at this point.
Kind of looks like it.
Yeah.
And I don't even know, when, in saying that, I don't even know exactly what that means. What part of it goes to the courts? What can they manage? Do you just say players sign a contract and you're an employee? And you get a 1-year contract, a 2-year contract? Or there are buyouts on those contracts like coaches have? I don't know. I don't have any idea where this is going to go or how it's going to finally end up. I just know I like the games. That's the thing that keeps me coming back. Is I really, once the games start, I love watching football and basketball games.
What's your thoughts on the schedule for Louisville football this upcoming year? They got new additions to the league and expanding, more travel.
To tell you the truth, I don't even know the exact schedule. I do know we go out to Stanford,
Yes.
and that's late in the year, I think. I know the schedule theoretically is a little tougher than the schedule. They got a bit of a break in the schedule last year. There's no denying that. Didn't play Clemson, didn't play Florida State until the championship game. Don't have as many home games. I mean, I do think this football team will probably be better than last year's team, but I don't know if they'll win 10 games again. I just think it's going to be a tougher schedule to get through this year. But it still could be good enough to get them to the championship game. But I'm excited about it. Again, I find it strange that we're going to Stanford for a conference game.
You and me both and everybody
That's
else.
the world we live in now. I'll be anxious to see. I'm guessing in basketball, once the schedule kicks in, you would maybe go out and play both Stanford and Cal on the same trip, and then come
You
back.
would think.
It would, that would
It makes
be logical.
logistic sense.
But football, you obviously can't go out for a 2-game series, so we'll go out and come back.
Definitely. How important do you feel that the 502 circle has been and the revitalization of the belief that the fan base has in football and basketball?
It's been huge. You saw evidence of that.
Is
The
it
day
Rick?
Coach Kelsey was hired. And
Oh,
all of a
yeah,
sudden,
for sure.
boom, the money came in, and then Rick Keeber made his pledge a couple of weeks ago, and people came through. And that's, as I said, we all know this is a very passionate, especially basketball, but I'll expand that. It's a very passionate sports community that the people will chip in and do what it takes to be competitive. I still personally have a little bit of a problem of being asked to pay more money and to finance the program and to pay the players, but people are willing to do that. That's the college sports environment now, and I think they've been very successful in bringing more money in to fit to meet those needs.
It's crazy that they got the fan base to donate $1 million. That's nuts. And then like you said, on top of that, you get Rick to throw another $1 million, so you got $2 million right there.
Well, you go back to when you first started paying money for the privilege of buying a ticket. The seat licensing, where first you got to pay for the ability to buy tickets. And then you can contribute, and now you can contribute more, and ticket prices are going up. It's a lot of money, but it's disposable income, and if it's important to people, they're going to spend it for that need.
All right, I got 2 more questions. What is the hardest thing as a fan base collective in your time with the university that you guys have had to get over?
I'm not sure I totally understand the question.
So, like a lot of stuff has happened, we know, within the last 15 years with U of L. But if you look past that, like, what's the hardest thing you've had to endure, whether it be a bad coaching hire or stuff like that?
The hardest thing to get over is what happened in the whole Pitino situation. And we've never completely recovered from that. We had the one glimpse there. The COVID year in basketball looked like that was a team.
Number one team in the nation, or
they were number one
Yeah.
earlier in the year. And that was the best team we've had since, and looked like a team that was capable of making a good NCAA tournament run. But other than that, things have never been the same since Pitino left. And it's been a difficult recovery that's still ongoing. And it's I can remember, we've been to one NCAA tournament since what, is it 16 or 17? I forget which.
One of those two.
And have not won a game. That one time we went to lost to Minnesota in the first round. And that's just so foreign to me because the first 30, 40 years I was doing this, it was just a given. Not only you were going to the NCAA tournament, you were probably going to go to the second weekend of the NCAA tournament. That was just the norm. And how far from that we have fallen, but hopefully now we're on the right track to get back there.
If you could give a piece of advice to anybody working in broadcasting or wanting to get into broadcasting or sports media or journalism, what would that be?
Just pursue it. If it's what you really love, go after it in any way you can. You probably should have a fallback. My parents always encouraged me to have a fallback, and I didn't listen. And unfortunately, I didn't need the fallback.
Knock on wood.
But it's a tough thing to crack. It really is sometimes because it's, you talk about a professional athlete. Well, not very many players are good enough to make an NBA basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
But still, there's 12 players on an NBA basketball team?
12 to 15.
How many broadcasters are on each basketball team? Only one or two or three, depending on TV,
It's a good analogy. I like that.
So, the odds are not good. And you need to understand that. But if you're willing to take that shot, then go after it.
Paul, thank you, sir.
Enjoyed it.